What are you doing with my gifts?" Martha's voice was low, almost a threatening whisper. I was in the kitchen when I heard her. I dropped the dish towel on the counter and felt the air turn thick, heavy, like before a thunderstorm. My daughter Jessica had opened the trunk of her car and was arranging the bags Martha had just brought, 90 pounds of produce from back home, homemade sausage wrapped in butcher paper, big, round wheels of cheese that smelled like fresh milk, jars of homemade apple butter with that thick texture you only get from stirring for hours, smoked bacon that my sister cured herself in her own shed. All of it. Everything Martha brought from me. Jessica was putting it in her car as if it was hers. "I am going to split it with Kyle's mother," my daughter said without even looking at me. She said it with that casualness that hurts more than a shout, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if those gifts did not have my name on them, as if I did not exist. Martha walked slowly toward the car. She did not run. She did not yell, not yet. She just walked with that firmness she always had, that way of moving that says more than 1,000 words. Jessica kept arranging the bags in the trunk, her back to her aunt. She did not realize Martha was right behind her until it was too late. "What are you doing with my gifts?" Martha repeated, but this time louder. Jessica spun around, startled. She had a jar of apple butter in her hand. She was holding it like it was hers, like she had the right. "They are for Mom, of course, but I am going to take a part to Evelyn. She is family, too." Jessica spoke with that voice she uses when she wants to justify the unjustifiable. That voice I know so well because I have heard it for years. That voice that turned me into a shadow in my own family. Martha did not say anything else. She reached out and took the jar. Then she started pulling all the bags out of the trunk, one by one. Jessica tried to stop her, but my sister brushed her aside with her arm. It was not violent. It was firm. It was final. "Aunt Martha, what is wrong with you?" Jessica raised her voice. The neighbors started peeking out their windows. The woman across the street came out into her yard, pretending to water her hydrangeas, but we all knew she was there to watch, to listen, to gossip later. "What's wrong with me is that I brought 90 pounds of food from the farm for my sister. Not for you, not for your mother-in-law, for Frances." Martha pronounced my name like it was a decree, like she was signing a legal document. Every syllable sounded clear, without doubt, without trembling. "But Mom lives here, with us. What's for her is for the house." Jessica was trying to get control of the situation, trying to sound reasonable, but her voice was shaking. Why? Did she know? Did she know that what she was doing was indefensible? "And so you take it all to give to another woman? To your husband's mother? Is that your logic?" Martha dropped the bags on the ground and crossed her arms. Her gaze was steel. I knew it. I had seen that look when we were girls, and someone tried to cheat us at the market. I had seen that look when a man disrespected our mother. It was the look that said, "You've gone far enough." Jessica opened her mouth to answer, but nothing came out. She just stood there, empty-handed, while Martha picked up the bags and carried them back into the house. She walked right past me without a word. I was standing in the doorway, paralyzed. I did not know whether to go out or stay in. I did not know whether to cry or be grateful. I only knew that something had just changed forever. My daughter looked at me from outside. There was something in her eyes I could not read. Was it shame? Was it anger? Was it resentment? She slammed the trunk shut and came into the house, pushing me with her shoulder as she passed. She did not say anything. She did not need to. The silence she left behind was more eloquent than any insult. Martha put the bags on the kitchen table and started taking the products out one by one. She arranged them with care, as if they were treasures, and they were. Each sausage represented hours of work. Each cheese was the result of getting up at dawn to milk the cows. Each jar of apple butter was an entire afternoon stirring the copper pot without stopping. All of it, all that effort, all that love. And Jessica was going to give it away as if it were worthless. "How long has she been treating you like this?" Martha looked me straight in the eye. It was not a reproach, it was a genuine question. A question that hurt because she knew the answer, and so did I. "I do not know. Several years. Since Kyle and she got married, I think. Maybe before. I do not even remember anymore." My voice came out weak, almost inaudible. I sat down in one of the kitchen chairs and looked at the bags on the table. I could not believe all of this was for me. It had been so long since anyone had given me anything, since anyone had thought of me, since anyone had seen me. Francis, do you hear yourself when you talk? Martha sat across from me and took my hands. Her hands were rough, calloused from farm work. But they were warm. They were real. They were the hands of someone who truly loved me. I do not understand. I looked at her, confused. You said you do not remember when she started treating you badly, that you do not even know. Do you realize how serious that is? Martha squeezed my hands tightly. Francis, you are my sister. I have known you since you were born, and the woman in front of me is not the same one who left our hometown 40 years ago. People change, Martha. I changed too. I tried to sound convincing, but my voice betrayed me. It broke in the middle of the sentence. Yes, people change, but you did not change. You faded, and I did not come all this way to see you faded. I came to remind you who you are. Martha got up and started putting the products in the pantry. She put them on the highest shelf, where Jessica could not easily reach them. This is yours. All of this is yours. And if your daughter wants to take something, she can ask you for it, with respect, like you ask a mother, not like you steal from a stranger. I felt something strange in my chest, a mix of relief and fear. Relief because someone had finally said what I did not dare to say. Fear because I knew this was not over. Jessica was not going to forgive this humiliation, and I was going to pay the consequences. I heard footsteps upstairs. It was her, pacing back and forth in her room. She was probably on the phone with Kyle, or worse, with Evelyn, her mother-in-law, the woman who held the place in this house that should have been mine. Who is Evelyn? Martha looked at me curiously. I had not told her much about her in our phone calls, not because I did not want to, but because I was ashamed to admit there was another grandmother in this house who received more love than I did. She's Kyle's mother. She lives about 10 blocks from here. But Jessica treats her like a queen. She brings her food every day, invites her to lunch on Sundays, buys her clothes, pays her bills, gives her money. And me? Well, you saw. My job is to clean, cook, and disappear. Martha closed the pantry door firmly. The sound echoed through the kitchen. I was not always this invisible woman you see now. There was a time when I was someone else. A woman with dreams, with a voice, with a presence. That was a long time ago. So long that sometimes I struggle to remember what that version of me was like. I am 63 years old. I was widowed 8 years ago. My husband's name was Edward. He worked at a furniture factory and died of a heart attack while sanding an oak table. He did not suffer. They told me he fell, and he was already gone when he hit the floor. I still do not know if that comforts me or hurts me more. I could not say goodbye. I could not tell him I loved him one last time. I just got a call from the hospital, and when I arrived, he was already covered with a white sheet. After that, everything changed. The house we lived in was rented. I could not afford it alone on my pension. Jessica offered to have me come live with her and Kyle. They had just bought this house. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small front yard. They told me it was temporary, just until I recovered emotionally, just until I found something cheaper for myself. That was 8 years ago, and I am still here. At first, it was not so bad. Jessica worked all day at an accounting office. Kyle drove a delivery truck. I took care of the house. I cooked, I cleaned, I did the laundry. I felt useful. I felt like I was paying for my stay somehow. No one asked me to, but I did it anyway. Because that is how I was raised. Because that is who I am. But then they met Evelyn. Well, Kyle already knew her, obviously. She was his mother. But Jessica really got to know her after the wedding. And something happened between them. A connection I never managed to have with my daughter. Evelyn is one of those women who knows how to talk, who knows how to say what the other person wants to hear, who knows how to make whoever is in front of her feel special. I never had that talent. I was always quieter, more reserved, less effusive. Edward used to say it was my charm, that he had fallen in love with my tranquility. But Jessica never saw it that way. To her, my silence was indifference. My calm was coldness. My reserve was a lack of love. Evelyn came into this house like a tornado. She started by coming for lunch on Sundays, then Sundays and Wednesdays, then 3 times a week. Now Jessica goes to her house almost every day. She brings her food. She does her shopping. She pays her utility bills. Last month, she bought her a new 50-inch television that cost $800. $800 for her mother-in-law. And she gives me $20 every 2 weeks for my personal expenses. I watch everything from my place in the shadows. I see how Jessica talks to Evelyn with that sweetness she never used with me. I see how she asks her if she slept well, if anything hurts, if she needs her to buy her medications. I see how Kyle sits next to his mother on the sofa and holds her hand while they watch television together. And I am in the kitchen washing the dishes they dirtied. It is not that Evelyn is a bad person. She is not. She is nice to me when we cross paths. She greets me, asks how I am, smiles at me, but there is something in her look that tells me she knows. She knows she occupies the place that should be mine, and she does not care. In fact, I think she enjoys it. The house I live in does not feel like my house. I have a room on the 2nd floor. It is the smallest of the 3. It used to be Jessica's sewing room, but when I arrived, they emptied it and put in a twin bed, a small closet, and a nightstand. The walls are white. There are no pictures, no photos, nothing to indicate that someone lives there. It is more like a cheap hotel room than a home. All my clothes fit in the closet because I do not have much. 3 pairs of pants, 4 blouses, 2 dresses for special occasions that never come, underwear, and an old coat I bought 10 years ago. I have 2 pairs of shoes, some black ones for daily wear, and sandals for the summer. Nothing more. I do not need more. I do not go anywhere. Martha lives differently. She stayed in our hometown. She married a good man who died 5 years ago of cancer. They did not have children. She has a small adobe house with a huge garden where she grows vegetables and herbs. She raises chickens. She has 3 cows and 2 pigs. She makes her own cheese, her own sausages, her own apple butter. She lives alone, but she is not lonely. She has neighbors who visit her. She has friends she has coffee with in the afternoons. She has a full life even without immediate family. I have family. I have a daughter, a son-in-law, a house to live in, but I am lonelier than Martha. Much lonelier. Mornings here are always the same. I get up at 6. I go down to the kitchen and make breakfast. Coffee for Kyle, tea with milk for Jessica, toast with butter and jam. They come down at 7, eat in silence, looking at their phones, leave their dirty dishes on the table, and go to work. I wash everything, clean the kitchen, sweep the floor, tidy the living room, make the beds, do the laundry. At 11, I start making lunch. Jessica comes back at 12:30. She eats fast, sometimes without even talking to me, and leaves again. Kyle eats out because his job is far away. I eat alone in the kitchen, looking out the window at the neighbor's yard, which is always greener than ours. The afternoons are long, very long. Sometimes I watch television in the living room, but if Jessica is home, she chooses what to watch. Almost always, they are shows that do not interest me. Foreign series with subtitles about crimes or rich people with made-up problems. I would rather watch the old soap operas, the ones that used to be on in the afternoons and told simple stories about ordinary people. But those do not exist anymore. Other afternoons I sit in my room and look out the window. From there I can see the street. I watch people pass by. I see young mothers pushing strollers. I see children coming home from school with their enormous backpacks. I see men returning from work tired, with their shirts wrinkled and their ties loosened. I watch life pass by, and I am not part of it. Sundays are the worst days. Because on Sundays, Evelyn comes for lunch, and I have to cook for her. I have to make what she likes. I have to serve her at the table. I have to smile when she says the food is delicious, even though I know she only says it to be polite. And then I have to wash all the dishes while she sits on the sofa with Jessica and Kyle as if she were the queen of this house. One time I tried to sit with them in the living room after lunch. It was about 2 years ago. I finished washing the dishes, dried my hands, and went to sit in the armchair by the window. Evelyn was telling a story about one of her neighbors who got into a fight with the mailman. Jessica was laughing. Kyle, too. I just listened, quiet, trying to be part of something. Then Evelyn looked at me and said, "Francis, do you not have to fold the laundry that is on the clothesline? I think it is going to rain." It was not a question. It was an order disguised as concern, and we all knew it. Jessica said nothing. Kyle, neither. They just kept looking at Evelyn as if she had just said something reasonable. I got up without a word and went to the patio to take down the laundry. Then I stayed in my room for the rest of the day. No one came looking for me. No one asked if I was okay. No one noticed my absence. That night I cried silently, my face buried in the pillow so they would not hear me. I cried for myself. I cried for the woman I used to be and who no longer exists. I cried for all the years I lost being invisible. I cried because I realized that no one would miss me if one day I simply disappeared. Edward used to tell me that I was his sunshine, that I brightened his days, that without me, his life had no meaning. When he died, I thought I would die too. But I did not die. I stayed alive. I kept breathing. I kept existing. Although sometimes I do not know why. Martha arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I did not know she was coming. She did not tell me. She just showed up at the door with those 2 huge canvas bags and a smile that lit up the whole hallway. We had not seen each other in person in 2 years. We talked on the phone every 2 weeks. But it is not the same. Seeing someone who truly loves you, who looks you in the eyes and sees you, is completely different. Francis, my soul. Martha dropped the bags on the floor and hugged me tight. She smelled like the countryside, like damp earth, like burnt wood, like that clean scent that only people who live far from the city have. I clung to her and felt something inside me break, something I had been holding in for years. I started to cry, unable to stop. "What is wrong, little sister? What did they do to you?" Martha pulled me back a bit to look at my face. Her hands were on my shoulders, and she looked at me with that mix of tenderness and concern that only she has. I did not say anything. I could not speak. I just kept crying while she held me. "Come in, please. Come in," I managed to say between sobs. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand and tried to pull myself together. I did not want her to see me like this. I did not want her to know how bad things were. But Martha always knew how to read me. Since we were girls, I could never hide anything from her. She grabbed the bags and came into the house. She looked around curiously. It was her first time here. When I moved in here after Edward's death, she could not come because she was caring for a sick neighbor. After that, something always prevented it. Her health, the weather, the money for the bus ticket. But now she was here, and I did not know whether to feel happy or ashamed for her to see how I lived. "Nice house," she said, without much conviction. Her gaze swept over the living room. The furniture was modern, the kind that comes in boxes that you have to assemble yourself. The sofa was gray, large, with many decorative pillows that no one could use because Jessica said they would get misshapen. The television took up almost the entire wall. There was a glass coffee table with interior design magazines that no one read. Everything looked clean, tidy, impeccable, but cold, soulless. "Thanks." I did not sound convinced either. "Do you want something to drink? Coffee? Water?" "Later. First, let me give you what I brought." Martha put the bags on the dining room table and started pulling things out. And that is when I saw it all. 90 pounds of love made into food. The first sausage she pulled out was huge. It was wrapped in butcher paper tied with string. It smelled of spices and smoke. I make it myself, remember? With Dad's recipe, Martha placed it in my hands as if she were handing me a treasure, and it was. I remember. Dad used to spend days preparing sausages for the holidays. I took the sausage and squeezed it gently. It was still warm. Martha must have prepared it just yesterday. Then she took out 3 large, round wheels of cheese, the kind made with fresh from the cow milk. I stacked them on the table, and she kept pulling things out. Jars of apple butter, 6 of them, all with handwritten labels showing the date they were made. Smoked bacon wrapped in plastic wrap. More sausages. A large jar of honey. Another of orange marmalade. A bag of walnuts. Another with toasted almonds. "Martha, this is too much. You did not have to bring so much." My voice was shaking again. I knew the effort that each of those products represented. The hours of work, the early mornings milking, the afternoons stirring the pot of apple butter without stopping. She did all of that thinking of me. It is not too much. It is what is right. You are my sister, my only blood family. And I want you to know that back home, there is someone who thinks about you every single day." Martha took my hands and looked at me intently. "Are you listening to me, Francis? Every single day I think about you." I started crying again, but this time they were different tears. They were not of pure sadness. They were something more complex. A mixture of gratitude, of relief, of pain for everything I did not have here and that Martha was giving me with these simple gestures. We sat at the dining room table, and she told me about our hometown. About Mrs. Mercedes, who turned 90 and still goes out to sweep her sidewalk every morning. About the grocer's son who became a teacher and now teaches at the school where we studied. About our cousin Estella, who got divorced and moved back in with her mother. About old man Julio, who sold his farm and moved to the city to live with his daughter. I listened to everything intently. Each name brought back memories. Each story connected me to that place I left so long ago. The town where I was born, where I learned to walk, to read, to dream, where I was happy before I knew unhappiness existed. And you, Francis? How are you here? How do they treat you? Martha asked the question I dreaded, the question I did not want to answer because I knew the answer would hurt her as much as it hurt me. Fine. Everything is fine. Jessica and Kyle work a lot, so I take care of the house. I keep busy. I tried to sound natural, but my voice betrayed me. It cracked on the last word. Martha looked at me in silence for a long few seconds. Then she said, "Francis, I came here on a bus that took 7 hours. I paid $45 for the ticket. I brought 90 pounds of food that I spent weeks preparing, thinking of you. I did not come for you to lie to me. I came to really see you, so I am going to ask you again. How are you?" I could not hold her gaze. I looked down at the table and saw my hands, old, wrinkled hands with prominent veins. Hands that had worked all their life and now worked for people who did not value me. Hands that had caressed my daughter when she was a baby and that now that same daughter did not even want to touch. "I am tired, Martha. Very tired." That was all I could say, but it was enough. She understood. She always understood. Just then, we heard the front door open. Jessica was home from work. She was talking on the phone. She always came in talking on the phone. She walked into the house without greeting us, her cell phone glued to her ear, and went straight to the kitchen. I heard her open the refrigerator, take something out, and close it. Then she headed for the stairs. That is when she saw the bags on the table. She saw the sausages, the cheeses, the jars of apple butter. And she saw Martha sitting with me. She ended the call and stood in the doorway, looking at us. "Hi, Aunt Martha. I did not know you were coming." Jessica spoke in that polite tone she used for visitors. That fake tone I knew so well. "Hello, Jessica. I came to bring your mom a few things. From the farm." Martha returned the greeting with the same cold politeness. "How nice." My daughter walked over to the table and started looking at everything. She picked up one of the sausages and sniffed it. Then she picked up a jar of apple butter and lifted it to see the label. "Is all this for here?" "All this is for your mom," Martha clarified. Her voice was firm, final. "Yeah, of course. For the house." Jessica put the jar down on the table and looked at me. "Mom, have you thought about where we are going to store all this? The refrigerator is full. We will make room," I said automatically. I always said that. I always adapted. I was always the one who had to adjust. Jessica grabbed her phone again and dialed a number. She stepped away and started talking in a low voice. I knew who she was calling. I knew by the way she smiled as she spoke. She was calling Evelyn. She hung up after a few minutes and came back to the table. "Mom, I told Evelyn that Aunt Martha brought things from the farm. She is going to love the cheeses. She adores farm cheese. Can we take her one?" I felt the floor sink beneath my feet. I looked at Martha. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes had turned dark. I recognized that expression. It was the same one she got when someone committed an injustice in front of her, and what had just happened was an injustice. "Jessica, that is not for giving away," I said, trying to sound firm, but my voice came out weak, insecure. "I am not giving it away, Mom. I am just sharing. Evelyn is family, too." My daughter had already made the decision. She was not asking for my permission. She was informing me. Martha stood up from her chair. She did not say anything. She just looked at Jessica for a few endless seconds. Then she walked out of the house without saying goodbye. I stayed seated, paralyzed, not knowing what to do. Jessica grabbed 2 wheels of cheese and 3 jars of apple butter and took them to the kitchen. "I am going to put these in a bag and then stop by Evelyn's," she said from in there. I stayed sitting at the dining room table, looking at the products that were left. There were still several sausages, 1 wheel of cheese, 3 jars of apple butter, the smoked bacon, the honey, the nuts. But it did not feel like a complete gift anymore. It felt incomplete, mutilated, as if someone had torn pieces out of something that was supposed to be whole. I heard Jessica in the kitchen, arranging things in a cloth bag, the same bag I used to go to the farmer's market on Saturdays. I heard the sound of the jars clinking against each other. I heard her footsteps approaching the dining room again. "Okay, all set." Jessica appeared with the bag hanging from her arm. It was heavy. You could tell by the way her body listed to that side. "I am going to stop by Evelyn's before it gets late. She eats dinner early, and if I get there later, it is complicated for her. Jessica, please." My voice came out as barely a whisper. Martha brought that for me, not to hand out. "Mom, do not be selfish. Evelyn is part of this family too, and she always brings us things when she goes to the grocery store. Or have you already forgotten the cookies she brought last week?" My daughter looked at me with that expression she used when she wanted to make me feel guilty. That expression that clearly said, "You are so ungrateful." "She bought those cookies with the money you give her. Martha made these products with her own hands. It is not the same." I tried to explain. I tried to make her understand the difference. But I knew it was useless. "Oh, Mom, always with the same thing. Everything has to be a drama with you." Jessica sighed with exasperation, as if I were a spoiled child complaining about nothing. "I will be back in an hour. And remember that Kyle gets home at 8 and will want dinner. Can you make chicken cutlets? Okay? There is meat in the fridge." She left the house, leaving me alone with those words hanging in the air. "Remember that Kyle gets home at 8. As if I were her employee. As if my only function in this house was to be available to cook when they were hungry. I sat there without moving for several minutes. I looked at the products on the table and felt something strange growing inside me. It was not exactly anger. It was something deeper, older. It was the accumulation of years of small humiliations that were finally starting to weigh too much. I thought about Martha, about how she had gotten up and left the house without a word. I knew that silence. It was the silence that came before the storm. Martha never yelled when she was angry. She got quiet. But that silence was more terrifying than any scream. I got up and went to the window. From there, I could see the street. I saw Jessica get into her car with the bag. She put it on the passenger seat carefully. She started the engine and drove off. I watched her drive down the street until she turned the corner and disappeared. Then I saw Martha. She was standing on the sidewalk across the street. She had been there the whole time, watching, waiting. When Jessica's car disappeared, Martha crossed the street with that determination I knew so well. That way of walking that said she had made a decision and nothing was going to stop her. I opened the door before she could knock. "Where did she go?" Martha asked, looking me straight in the eye. "To Evelyn's, Kyle's mother. To take her the cheese and the apple butter." My voice sounded defeated even to my own ears. "And you let her?" Martha came into the house and closed the door behind her. She did not wait for an answer. She already knew the answer. I always let her. I always let things happen that should not happen. "I do not know what to do, Martha. If I say no, she gets angry. If I complain, she says I am selfish. If I try to set boundaries, she makes me feel like I am overreacting. I am tired of fighting." I sat down again in the dining room chair. My legs felt weak. Martha sat across from me. She put her hands on the table and looked at them for a few seconds before speaking. "Francis, do you know how much work it was for me to make everything I brought you? I do not mean the money, I mean the time, the effort, the hours." "I know, Martha. I know, and I am grateful. I really am." "No, you do not know. Because if you knew, you would not let your daughter just take it like that." Martha looked up and met my gaze. "Listen to me. The sausages took me 3 days. Minding the meat, mixing it with the spices, stuffing the casings, letting it dry, smoking it. 3 whole days. The cheeses. I started those 2 weeks ago. Milking the cows at 5 in the morning, straining the milk, heating it to the exact temperature, adding the rennet, waiting, cutting the curds, pressing it, letting it age. 2 weeks making sure everything came out perfect. Martha, please, do not make me feel worse. And the apple butter. Do you know how many hours you have to stir a pot for the apple butter to get that texture? 4, 5, and you cannot stop, because if you stop, it burns. And if it burns, the whole batch is ruined." Martha had tears in her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of contained rage. "I did all of that thinking of you, of my sister, of the person who shared my childhood, my youth, my sorrows, and my joys. I did not do it so some spoiled brat could take it to a stranger. Evelyn is not a stranger. She's the grandmother of my grandchildren. I tried to defend her. I do not know why. Maybe out of habit. Maybe because I had always defended Jessica, even when she was indefensible. And what are you? What are you, Francis?" Martha raised her voice. "You are the other grandmother. You are family too. But they treat you like you are less. Like you are second class. Like your existence does not matter. It is not like that. Jessica is busy. She has her job, her house, her life. It is normal for her to be more attentive to Evelyn because she is alone and she is older. Evelyn is 70. You are 63. That is not such a big difference." Martha stood up from the chair. "And even if it were, that does not justify anything. You are her mother, Francis. Her mother. The woman who gave birth to her, who raised her, who took care of her when she was sick, who stayed up all night with her when she was a baby, who worked to feed her and pay for her school. And now it turns out Evelyn deserves more than you because she is alone. And what about you? Are you not alone too?" I fell silent. I had no answer. Or rather, I did, but I did not want to admit it out loud. Because admitting it meant accepting that everything Martha was saying was true, and accepting that truth hurt too much. Martha walked to the window and looked outside. She stood there for a long time. I watched her from the table. Her back was tense. Her shoulders rose and fell with each deep breath she took. She was trying to calm down, to control herself, to not explode. "You know what I am going to do?" Martha turned around and looked at me. She did not wait for my answer. "I am going to go get what is yours. I am going to go to that Evelyn's house, and I am going to get back what your daughter took without permission." "No, Martha, please, do not make a scene. I promised Jessica I would make dinner for Kyle, and if you go and start a problem, she will get angry with me." I stood up from the chair. I felt panic. Panic about the consequences. Panic about Jessica's reaction. Panic about having to face the conflict. "Francis, listen to me." Martha came over to me and grabbed my shoulders. She looked me straight in the eyes. "You are not the employee of this house. You are not your daughter's maid. You are a 63-year-old woman who deserves respect. And if she will not give it to you, I am going to make her understand. Did you hear me? I am going to make her understand." "But Martha." "No buts. Tell me where that woman lives." "I do not know the exact address. I know it is about 10 blocks from here, on the main avenue. Then I will wait for Jessica to come back. And when she comes back, I will follow her." Martha let go of my shoulders and went to sit on the living room sofa. She crossed her arms and stared at the door with an expression that allowed no argument. I went back to sitting at the dining room table. I looked at the products that remained. The smoked bacon, the honey, the nuts, the 3 jars of apple butter that Jessica had not taken because they did not fit in the bag. All of that was still mine, but it did not make me happy to look at it anymore. It only reminded me of what had been taken. Almost an hour passed, An eternal hour in which Martha and I did not speak. She remained sitting on the sofa, arms crossed, staring at the door. I was in the kitchen preparing the chicken cutlets for Kyle. I pounded the meat with the mallet harder than necessary. Each blow was like a silent release. Each impact against the cutting board echoed through the kitchen. I dredged the cutlets in egg and breadcrumbs. I put them on a platter, ready to fry when Kyle got home. I set the table. I took out the silverware, the plates, the napkins. Everything in its exact place. Everything as it should be. As it always was. Then we heard the car. Jessica was home. Martha stood up from the sofa before I could say anything. She walked out of the house and closed the door behind her. I stood in the kitchen with the dish towel in my hands, feeling my heart beat too fast. From the kitchen, I could see part of the street. I saw Jessica get out of the car. She still had the bag in her hand, but now it was empty. You could tell by how it hung limply from her arm. She opened the trunk to put it in, and that is when Martha appeared. I could not hear what they were saying, but I saw how Martha walked straight toward Jessica. I saw how my daughter jumped when she saw her. I saw Martha extend her hand, pointing at the trunk. I saw Jessica shake her head. And then Martha did something I did not expect. She opened the back door of the car and started looking for something. Jessica tried to close the door, but Martha was faster. She started pulling things out of the car. A purse, a jacket, a shoebox. She dropped them on the street as she kept searching. Jessica was yelling something. I could see it in her open mouth, her exaggerated gestures, but Martha paid her no attention. Then Martha found something on the floor of the car. It was one of the jars of apple butter. She held it up triumphantly and showed it to Jessica. My daughter tried to grab it, but Martha pulled it away. Then she bent down and kept searching. She pulled out another jar, and then another. The 3 jars she had taken were right there, on the floor of the car, empty. I felt something cold run through my body. The jars were empty. Jessica had already given the apple butter to Evelyn. She had already handed it out. There was nothing left to recover, but Martha did not give up. She kept talking to Jessica. She pointed her finger at her. She was saying things I could not hear but could imagine. Jessica had backed up against the car. Her arms were crossed over her chest in a defensive posture. Her face was red. I do not know if from shame or anger. The neighbors started to come out. The woman across the street opened her door and stood in the doorway, watching. The couple next door came out into their yard. The man from the other side of the street turned down the volume on his television and peered out the window. Everyone was watching. Everyone was listening. Everyone was going to talk about it. Martha raised her voice. This time I could hear some words. Ungrateful. Selfish. Shameless. Each word sounded like a slap. Jessica tried to respond, but Martha would not let her. She kept talking, kept pointing at her, kept exposing what she had done in front of everyone. Then Martha did something that left me paralyzed. She took the 3 empty jars and brought them to my door. She left them on the front step, lined up one next to the other. Like evidence. Like proof of what had happened. Then she went back to Jessica. "Where are the cheeses?" Martha's voice carried across the street. Now I heard her perfectly. Clear, loud, unwavering. "I already gave them to Evelyn," Jessica answered in a trembling voice. "I do not have them." "And the sausage? Did you give her that too?" "Yes. I gave her all of it." Jessica lifted her chin, trying to look defiant, but her voice betrayed her. She sounded small, scared. Martha walked until she was inches from my daughter. She did not touch her. She did not push her. She just stood there, looking down at her. Martha was always taller, bigger, more imposing, and in that moment, she used all that physical presence to intimidate. "Listen to me, girl, because I am only going to say this once." Martha was speaking in a low voice now, but that low tone was more threatening than any shout. "I came from the farm carrying 90 pounds of food that I made with my own hands. 90 pounds that I carried by myself to the station, that I got on the bus by myself, that I got off by myself, that I brought here, walking 10 blocks from the terminal. Do you know why I did all that? For your mother, for Frances, for the woman who gave birth to you and raised you. Not for you. not for you to give away to a stranger. Evelyn is not a stranger. She's the grandmother of my children. Jessica tried to defend herself. And what is your mother? What is Frances to you? Martha raised her voice again. Because watching you, it seems like she is nothing, like she is less than nothing. Mom lives here. Everything we bring into this house is for everyone. Jessica tried to sound reasonable, but her argument was weak, and we all knew it. Liar. Martha spat the word. You did not bring anything into this house. I brought it. I carried it. I traveled. I made the effort, and I did it specifically for your mother, not for the house, not for everyone. For her. And you, without consulting her, without asking her permission, without even having the decency to wait for her to decide what to do with her own gifts, you took it all. Is this how you repay her for everything she did for you? Jessica fell silent. She had no answer. Or she did, but she knew anything she said would sound worse. The woman across the street was shaking her head. The couple next door was whispering to each other. The man from the window had come out onto the sidewalk. I want you to go right now to that woman's house and bring back what belongs to your mother. Martha pointed down the street. Right now. I will wait here. I cannot do that. Evelyn already opened the jars. She already ate the apple butter. She already cut the cheeses. I cannot ask her to give them back. Jessica sounded desperate now. And why not? Because you are embarrassed to admit you were wrong? Because you do not want to look bad in front of your mother-in-law? Martha laughed. But it was not a happy laugh. It was a bitter laugh. Full of contempt. How convenient, right? You would rather look good for a stranger than respect your own mother. She is not a stranger. Jessica kept repeating the same thing, as if saying it many times would make it true. She is to Frances, and these gifts were for Frances. Not for you, not for Evelyn. For your mother. Martha took a step back. That is it. You have put on your show. You have shown the whole neighborhood what kind of daughter you are. Now go into your house and look your mother in the eye. If you can. Martha turned and walked toward the house. She passed Jessica without looking at her. She walked up the steps and collected the 3 empty jars. She brought them inside and put them on the dining room table with care, as if they were valuable despite being empty. I was standing in the middle of the living room. I did not know what to do. I did not know what to say. Martha looked at me and shook her head. I am sorry, Frances. I did what I could, but they already ate everything. There is nothing left to recover. Her voice sounded tired, defeated, but also angry. Very angry. Jessica came into the house, slamming the door. She went up the stairs without looking at me. I heard her walk down the hall to her room. I heard her close her door. Also with a slam, I sat down in the dining room chair and looked at the empty jars. They still had traces of apple butter on the glass. I could see the spoon marks. Someone had scraped the bottom to get every last bit. They had not left anything, not even a taste. Martha sat next to me and took my hand. This cannot go on, she said softly. You cannot keep living like this. I have nowhere to go. My voice came out broken. This is my home now. This is not your home, Frances. A home is a place where they care for you, where they respect you, where they love you. This is a prison. Martha squeezed my hand. And you stay here because you are afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of not having enough money. Afraid your daughter will get mad and kick you out. Afraid of everything. She was right. Everything she said was true. I lived in fear. Constant fear. Fear that paralyzed me. That made me accept the unacceptable. That turned me into a shadow. How much does Jessica give you a month? Martha asked me a question no one had ever asked me. $20 every 2 weeks. $40 a month. For my personal expenses. And your pension? Where is your widow's pension? I fell silent. I did not want to answer, because the answer was shameful. Frances, where is your pension? Martha insisted. Jessica collects it. She says she uses it to pay for food and house expenses. That I eat here, use the water, use the electricity, use everything. That it is only fair I contribute. I felt the tears fall down my cheeks. She collects $420 a month from my pension, and she gives me $40. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in my bed, staring at the white ceiling of my room. Outside, I heard the usual noises. Dogs barking in the distance, cars passing on the avenue, the wind moving the leaves in the trees. But inside the house, there was a heavy silence, a silence that hurt. Martha had stayed the night. I made up the bed for her on the living room sofa. There was nowhere else. Jessica did not offer her guest room. She did not even come down for dinner. She stayed locked in her room all night. Kyle got home at 8, as always, and I served him his chicken cutlets. He ate in silence, looking at his phone. He did not ask about Jessica. He did not ask about Martha. He did not ask about anything. He finished, left his dirty plate on the table, and went up to his room. I washed everything, cleaned the kitchen, turned off the lights. I brought an extra blanket to Martha because the night was cool. Then I went up to my room and lay down fully clothed. I did not even have the energy to change. Martha's words echoed in my head. $420 a month from my pension, and she gives me 40. I had said it out loud, and hearing it sounded worse. It sounded like theft. It sounded like abuse. It sounded like everything it was, but that I had never dared to name. Edward had worked for 35 years at the furniture factory. 35 years of getting up at 5 in the morning, of coming home with his hands full of splinters, of breathing sawdust until his lungs got used to that dirty air, all so that when he died, I would have something to live on, something that would let me keep my dignity, my independence. But I had no independence. I had no dignity. I had $40 a month and a room I could not even call my own, because at any moment Jessica could decide she needed the space for something else, and I would have to leave. No complaints, no protests, because that is just how things were. When had I become this? When had I accepted being treated as if I were worthless? I tried to remember the exact moment it all changed, but there was no exact moment. It had been gradual, little things that piled up until they became normal. At first, Jessica asked me for the pension to help with expenses. She said they were tight on money, that the house had cost more than they thought, that they needed my help, and I agreed. Because it was reasonable. Because I lived there and used everything. Because I wanted to be useful. Then she stopped asking me for it. She just went to the bank and collected it. She had an authorization from me that I had signed when I first moved in with them. It is for an emergency, she had told me, in case something happens to you and you cannot go. But that emergency became permanent, and I never said anything. The $40 she gave me had not always been so little either. At first, she gave me 100, then 80, then 60, then 40. Less and less each time, and I protested less and less each time, because I was afraid. Afraid she would get mad, afraid she would tell me that if I did not like it, I could leave. Afraid I had nowhere to go. But now Martha was here, and Martha had made me see what I did not want to see. She had forced me to put words to what I lived every day, and those words burned inside me. I got out of bed around 3 in the morning. I went downstairs on tiptoe so I would not make noise. Martha was awake. She was sitting on the sofa with the blanket over her legs, looking out the window. "You cannot sleep," she said, without looking at me. It was not a question. "No." I sat next to her. "You either." "I am thinking." Martha turned to look at me. "Francis, I have to go back to the farm the day after tomorrow. I have the animals. I have the house. I cannot stay any longer." "I know. I did not expect you to stay. But I am not leaving you here. Not like this." Martha took my hands, the same hands she had held before. But now there was something different in her grip. There was urgency. There was decision. "I want you to come with me." "To the farm?" I looked at her, not understanding. "Yes. To our hometown. To my house. With me." Martha spoke quickly, as if she were afraid I would interrupt her before she finished. "I have space. I have a room I do not use. You can stay there. We can live together, like when we were girls. We help each other. We take care of each other. I am not that young anymore, and I could use the company. And you need to get out of here before you waste away completely. I cannot just leave. Jessica needs me. This house needs me." I tried to make excuses, but they sounded hollow even to me. "Francis, open your eyes." Martha shook me gently by the shoulders. Jessica does not need you. She uses your labor, she uses your money, she uses your presence when it is convenient. But she does not need you, not as a mother, not as a person. She has you here because it is comfortable, because she does not have to pay a maid if you do everything for free. It is not like that. I am her mother. She loves me. She just has her own way of showing it. What way? By taking your money? By ignoring you? By giving away what is yours without asking? By leaving you the leftovers? By making you sleep in the smallest room while her mother-in-law gets all the pampering? Martha raised her voice. Is that her way of loving you? I stayed quiet because I had no answer. Or I did, but it hurt too much to admit. I am not going to force you, Martha continued, calmer, but I am going to tell you something Mom told me before she died. She said, Martha, take care of your sister. Because Frances has too good a heart, and people with good hearts always end up hurt. And I promised her I would take care of you, but I let you come to the city. I left you alone. And now I see the result. It is not your fault. I made my own decisions. Yes, you made the decision to marry Edward, and that was a good decision. Edward loved you, he cared for you, he respected you, but then he died, and you made the decision to come here, and that was a bad decision. Martha squeezed my hands. But it is not too late. You can make a new decision. You can choose yourself for once in your life. I am scared. The words came out on their own, unfiltered, undefended. I am scared to leave. I am scared of being alone. I am scared Jessica will never forgive me. Jessica does not forgive you for anything now, Frances. Because to her, you are always at fault. You are always the one who does something wrong, the one who does not understand, the one who exaggerates, the one who is a bother. Martha let go of my hands and stood up from the sofa. She walked to the window and looked out. The street was empty, dark. Only the streetlights illuminated a few patches. And you know what the worst part is? You believe it. You believed you are a burden, that you are a problem, that you have to be grateful just to have a roof over your head. But it is not true. You are not a burden. You are a woman who deserves respect, who deserves love, who deserves to live with dignity. I started to cry. I could not hold it back anymore. I cried like I had not cried in years. I cried for everything I had endured, for all the silent slights, for all the times I felt invisible, for all the days I wished I would not wake up. Martha came back to the sofa and hugged me. She let me cry on her shoulder without saying anything. She stroked my hair like when we were girls and I was afraid of the thunder. She held me while my body shook with each sob. When I finally managed to calm down, she pulled me back gently and looked me in the eye. Think about it, she said. I will not pressure you, but really think about it. Back home, you have a house waiting for you. You have a sister who loves you. You have your full pension, because I am not going to take a single cent from you. You have peace, you have clean air. You have room to breathe. You have a life. And what do I have here? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Here, you have a room that is not yours, a daughter who does not see you, a son-in-law who does not talk to you, $40 a month. And the title of grandmother that they only use when it is convenient. Martha stood up. I am going to try to sleep. You should too. You will think more clearly tomorrow. I went up to my room, but I did not lie down. I sat on the bed, looking out the window. The sky was starting to lighten. Soon it would be another day. Another day just like all the ones before. Another day of cleaning, of cooking, of being invisible, of existing without living. Or it could be different. It could be the day I finally decided something for myself. Not for Jessica, not for Kyle, not to make anyone else happy. For me, I opened the closet and looked at my clothes. Everything fit in one bag. My whole life fit in one bag. That said a lot about how I had lived these last few years. Accumulating nothing, creating nothing, leaving no mark. But I still had time. I could still change. I could still choose. The question was whether I had the courage. If after so many years of letting myself be pushed around, there was anything left of the woman I used to be. That woman who dared to fall in love, who dared to move to the city, who dared to dream, I closed the closet and sat on the bed again. It was light outside now. A new day was beginning, and I had to decide if it was going to be just one more of the same, or the day my life changed forever. The next morning, I went down to make breakfast, just like always. But everything felt different. Every movement was mechanical. Every task was a reminder of what Martha had told me. I put the coffee on to brew. I got out the bread. I put the butter and jam on the table, all on autopilot while my mind was somewhere else. Martha appeared in the kitchen, already dressed. She smelled like soap. She had showered with the cold water in the downstairs bathroom because the water heater only worked for the upstairs bathrooms. Another detail that said a lot about my place in this house. "Good morning," she said, sitting at the table. "Did you get any sleep?" "A little." I lied. I had not slept at all. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat across from her. "Martha, about what we talked about last night, you do not have to decide now," she interrupted. "Take your time. I have already decided." The words came out before I could stop them. But as soon as I said them, I knew they were true. "I am going with you. To the farm, to your house." Martha put her cup down on the table and looked at me intently. "Are you sure?" "No, I am not sure of anything. I am scared. I am very scared. But I am more scared of staying here and continuing to die a little bit every day." I felt the tears again, but this time they were not just from sadness. They were also from relief, from liberation. Martha reached her hand across the table, and I took it. "Then we leave the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, you pack your things. I will help you. And the next day, we take the bus together." Her voice was firm, confident. It gave me a strength I did not have. "I have to tell Jessica. I have to talk to her." "Of course. But you are not asking her permission. You are informing her. There is a difference." Martha squeezed my hand. "You are not her prisoner. You are an adult woman making a decision about your own life." Just then, we heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Jessica. She was coming down, already dressed for work. She came into the kitchen without greeting us. She poured coffee into a travel mug. She grabbed a piece of toast and put jam on it, standing by the counter. "Jessica, I need to talk to you," I said, trying to make my voice sound firm. "Not now, Mom. I am late." She did not even look at me. She just kept preparing her toast with quick movements. "It is important. It will not take long. We can talk later." Jessica capped her travel mug and bit into her toast. She started walking toward the door. "I am moving to the farm with Martha." I said it loudly, clearly, without hesitation. Jessica stopped. She turned around slowly and looked at me as if she had not understood. "What did you say?" "I said I am moving to the farm. With your aunt. To live with her." I repeated the words, feeling my heart beat faster and faster. "To live." Jessica let out a short laugh. "Wait, are you being serious?" "Completely serious." I stood up from my chair. I needed to be standing for this conversation. I needed to not feel small. "Mom, do not be ridiculous. You cannot move to the farm. You are an older woman. What are you going to do there?" Jessica put her mug and toast down on the counter. Now she was paying attention to me. Now she was looking at me. "I am going to live. I am going to have my own room. I am going to have my full pension. I am going to be with someone who loves me and respects me." My voice was shaking, but I did not stop. "I am going to stop being invisible." "Invisible?" "Mom, what are you talking about? You live here. You have everything you need." Jessica walked toward me. "You have a roof over your head, food, a family. I have a room that looks like a cell. I have $40 a month from my own pension. And I have a daughter who yesterday took the gifts my sister brought me and gave them to someone else without even asking me." I felt the anger rising inside me, an anger that had been dormant for years. Here we go again. Jessica threw her hands up in exasperation. "Mom, I just wanted to share with Evelyn. It was not a big deal. $420, I said, looking her straight in the eye. "That is what you collect from my pension every month. And you give me 40. Where's the other 380? Jessica opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She looked at Martha and then at me. Her face went from surprise to discomfort, and finally to anger. That is used for the house expenses, for your food, for the electricity you use, for the water, for everything. Or did you think living here was free? I did not think you would charge me almost my entire pension to live in the smallest room in the house and work as an unpaid maid. The words came out sharp, cutting, and it felt good to say them. Unpaid maid? Mom, you do things around the house because you want to. Nobody forces you. Jessica crossed her arms over her chest. That defensive pose I knew so well. Nobody forces me with words. But if I do not do it, who does? You? You work all day, and when you get home, you lock yourself in your room or run off to Evelyn's. I took a step toward her. I clean your house. I wash your clothes. I cook your food. I iron your husband's shirts. And what do I get in return? $40 and the privilege of being invisible. You are not invisible. You are my mother, and you live here with us. That should be enough. Enough? I looked around the kitchen. This house that I clean every day. This kitchen where I spend hours preparing food that others eat while I eat alone. This should be enough? Feeling like a stranger in the one place I should feel at home? Martha stood up from her chair but said nothing. She just stood by the table, watching, letting us talk, letting me fight my own battle. If it bothers you so much to live here, then fine, leave. Jessica raised her voice. Go to the farm with Martha, and live in that forgotten town where there is nothing, where people die of boredom, where you will not have the comforts you have here. The comforts? I repeated the word bitterly. Are you referring to the room without heating? The bathroom without hot water? The $20 every 2 weeks? Eating the leftovers while your mother-in-law gets the best? Those comforts? Jessica fell silent. Her face was red. Her hands were shaking slightly. I do not know if from rage or something else. When did you become this? I asked, more softly. When did you stop seeing me as your mother and start seeing me as a burden? I never said you were a burden. Her voice dropped in volume too. You did not have to say it. You showed it. Every single day for 8 years you showed me. I felt the tears, but this time I did not hold them back. I let them fall, and I allowed it. I accepted everything because I was afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of having nowhere to go. Afraid of losing you. But you know what? I already lost you. I lost you a long time ago. Or maybe I never really had you. Mom. Jessica took a step toward me, but I stepped back. No, it is done. I have made my decision. I am leaving the day after tomorrow. I am going to pack my things, and I am leaving. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand, and I want you to deposit my full pension into my account starting this month. I have already spoken with Martha, and she is going to help me do the paperwork so you cannot collect it anymore. That was a lie. I had not spoken about the paperwork yet, but I sounded convincing, and Jessica seemed to believe me because her face got even redder. Are you threatening me? She asked, incredulous. I am informing you. Martha was right. There was a difference, a big one. Kyle is going to hear about this. Jessica was looking for support, looking for an ally. Tell him whatever you want. Tell him your mother got tired of being treated like nothing. Tell him she went to live in a place where she is valued. Tell him whatever you want. I do not care anymore. And it was true. For the first time in years, I really did not care what they thought. Jessica grabbed her travel mug and her purse. She walked to the door, and before leaving she turned around. You will be back, she said with certainty. You will last 2 weeks in that town, and you will come back begging me to let you live here again. Maybe, I answered calmly. Or maybe I will discover that I should have left 8 years ago. I guess we will find out. She left, slamming the door. The sound echoed through the whole house. Then there was silence. I sat down in the chair again. My legs were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I could not believe what had just happened. I could not believe I had spoken like that I had said all those things I had kept inside for years. Martha sat next to me and put her arm around me. I am proud of you, she whispered. Mom would be proud of you. And then I cried again. But these tears were different. They were tears of relief. I spent the next day packing. Martha was right. My whole life fit into one large bag and a backpack. Clothes, a few old books I had brought from my old house, the photos of Edward, a rosary my mother had given me before she died, and nothing else. 8 years living here, and I had accumulated nothing. I had left no mark. It was as if I had never been here. Jessica did not come home for lunch. She called, saying she had too much work. Kyle did not show up either. I assumed she had told him everything, and he had decided to stay out of it, as usual. Martha and I ate alone. I made a simple stew with what was in the refrigerator. We ate in silence, each lost in her own thoughts. In the afternoon, I went to the bank. Martha came with me. I spoke to an employee and explained that I wanted to revoke the authorization I had given my daughter to collect my pension. The man explained the process. I needed to fill out some forms, present my ID, sign several times. He told me the change would take a month to process, so Jessica would still be able to collect this month's. But next month, the money would be deposited directly into my account. $420. It was more than I had had in years. With that, I could live comfortably in our hometown. I could help Martha with the expenses. I could buy new clothes if I needed them. I could have financial dignity again. When we got back to the house, Kyle was sitting in the living room. It was strange to see him at that hour. He usually got home much later. He looked at me when I came in but did not say anything. Martha went upstairs to finish packing her things, and I stood in the doorway looking at him. Jessica told me, he finally said, that you are leaving. Yes, I am leaving tomorrow. I sat in the armchair, the one I had once tried to use and that Evelyn had kicked me out of with her comment about the laundry. Is it because of yesterday? Because of the food from the farm? Kyle put his phone down on the coffee table and looked at me with something like guilt in his eyes. It is not just because of that. It is because of many things that have piled up for years. I paused. Kyle, you were always nice to me. You never treated me badly. But you never defended me either. You never said anything when your mother took my place. You never said anything when Jessica spoke to me as if I did not matter. I do not get involved in those things. They are problems between you two. He looked down. Not getting involved is also a choice, Kyle. It is choosing a side, and you chose your mother's side. You chose Jessica's side. And that is fine. She is your wife. Evelyn is your mother. But I am part of this family too. Or I was. Francis, you will always be part of this family. You are the grandmother of my children. Kyle leaned forward, elbows on his knees. What children, Kyle? You do not have children. You have been married for 6 years, and you do not have children. So I do not even have that role. I am just the woman who lives in the upstairs room and cleans the house. He did not know what to say. He just sat there, staring at the floor. I am not blaming you, I continued. I am not blaming anyone anymore. I am just making a decision I should have made a long time ago. I am going to a place where I can live in peace, where I can have my space, where I can be myself without asking for permission. And if Jessica wants you to come back, if she asks you to come back, then we will talk. But under different conditions. I am not going to be invisible again. I am not going to accept scraps again. I am not going to live in fear again. I stood up from the sofa. I have to finish packing. I went up to my room and closed the door. I sat on the bed and looked around. I had slept in this bed for 8 years. I had looked at these white walls for 8 years. I had lived in this small space that never felt like home. And tomorrow I was leaving. Tomorrow I would close this door for the last time. That night, Jessica got home late. After 10, I heard her footsteps coming up the stairs. I heard her stop in front of my door. I waited for her to knock. I waited for her to come in. But she did not. She just stood there for a few seconds and then continued on to her room. The next morning, I woke up early. I went down and made breakfast for the last time. Coffee for Kyle, tea for Jessica, toast, everything as usual. But knowing it was the last time, Martha came down with her bag, ready. She had packed the remaining food in a smaller bag to take with us. The sausages, the bacon, the honey, the nuts, everything Jessica had not been able to give away. Jessica appeared, already dressed. She sat at the table and drank her tea in silence. Kyle came down too. The atmosphere was tense, heavy. No one spoke. "The bus leaves at 11, I said, looking at the kitchen clock. It was 9:30. We have to leave in half an hour to get to the terminal. Jessica put her cup down on the table harder than necessary. The sound made us all jump. "Are you really going to go?" she asked, looking at me for the first time since she had come down. "Yes, I am going." I held her gaze. "And if I ask you not to?" Her voice sounded different, sober, almost vulnerable. "Why would you want me to stay, Jessica? To keep doing the housework? To keep being invisible?" I returned the question. "Because you are my mother." She looked down. "And even if it does not seem like it, I do care about you. If you cared about me, you would not have treated me the way you did. If you cared about me, you would not have taken my pension. If you cared about me, you would not have given my gifts to someone else." I felt the tears welling up, but I did not let them fall. I had cried enough. "Jessica, I love you. I will always love you. You are my daughter, but I cannot keep living like this. It is killing me, little by little. And you will be better off at the farm, in that town where there is nothing?" Her voice had that defensive tone again. "In that town I will have peace. I will have my money. I will have my space. I will have someone who sees me, who values me. That is more than I have here." Martha stood up from the table and took her cup to the sink. "Francis, we should get ready. We do not want to miss the bus." I went up to my room for the last time. I grabbed my bag and my backpack. I looked around one more time. This room that was never mine. This space that never felt like home. And I realized I did not feel sad. I felt relieved. I came downstairs with my things. Martha was already waiting at the door. Jessica was standing in the middle of the living room. Kyle had left for work. He had said goodbye with an awkward hug and left quickly. As always. "Well, I guess this is goodbye," I said, putting my bags down by the door. Jessica walked toward me. For a moment, I thought she was going to hug me, but she stopped about a foot away. "Are you going to call?" she asked. "Yes, I will call. But I do not know when I will come back to visit. I need time. I need to heal." I was honest. After everything that had happened, there was no point in lying. "Okay." She nodded. "Mom." She paused, as if searching for the right words. "I am sorry if I ever made you feel like you did not matter. Not ever, Jessica. Every day. Every day for 8 years. I was not going to let her off that easy. If you are really sorry, think about that. Think about how you treated me. And if you ever have children, treat your mother-in-law better than you treated me." I grabbed my bags and walked out of the house. Martha followed me. I did not look back. I did not want to see if Jessica was in the doorway. I did not want to see if she was crying or if she remained impassive. I just kept walking. The taxi Martha had called was waiting for us at the corner. We got in and gave the driver the address for the bus terminal. Neither of us spoke during the ride. I looked out the window, watching the streets of this city where I had lived for so many years pass by. This city that no longer felt like my home. At the terminal, we bought the tickets. $45 each. Martha insisted on paying for mine, but I did not let her. I used part of the $40 I had left. Soon I would have more. Soon I would have my full pension. The bus left on time at 11. I sat by the window. Martha sat next to me. As the bus left the city behind and began to enter the rural routes, I felt something strange in my chest. It was not sadness. It was not exactly joy. It was something in between. It was the feeling of closing one chapter and opening another. It was the feeling of being alive again. The trip took 7 hours. 7 hours of watching out the window as the city turned into towns, the towns into fields, the fields into an endless horizon. Martha dozed next to me. I could not sleep. My mind was too busy processing everything that had happened in the last 2 days. Everything that had changed. Everything I had decided. We arrived in our hometown as the sun was beginning to set. The bus dropped us off in the main square, a small square with old trees, wooden benches, and a white church at the far end. Everything looked exactly as I remembered it from my previous visits. Quiet. Simple. Real. Martha carried her bag, and I carried mine. We walked 4 blocks to her house. An adobe house with a tile roof, wooden windows painted green, a front garden full of plants and flowers. The front door was heavy, old, with a large lock that creaked when Martha opened it. "Welcome to your new home," she said, stepping aside to let me pass. I entered, and the smell hit me immediately. It smelled clean, of dried herbs, of firewood, of home cooking. It smelled like a real home. The living room was small but cozy. There was an old but comfortable sofa, a solid wood table, flowered cloth curtains, photos on the walls, photos of our family, of our parents, of us as girls, of Edward, of moments that no longer existed but were still alive in those images. "Your room is this way." Martha led me down a short hallway. She opened a door, and we entered a bright room with a large window that looked out onto the backyard. There was a double bed with a hand-knitted bedspread, a wooden wardrobe, a nightstand with a lamp, a chair by the window. The walls were a soft cream color. There was a painting of sunflowers hanging above the bed. "It is beautiful," I whispered. I could not believe this was for me, that this spacious, bright, warm space was my new room. "You can decorate it however you want, change whatever you do not like. This is yours now." Martha left my bag on the bed. "Rest for a bit. I am going to make something for dinner." I stayed alone in the room. I sat on the bed and tested it. It was firm but comfortable, much better than the narrow, hard bed I had slept on for 8 years. I got up and opened the wardrobe. It was empty, waiting for my clothes. I started to unpack. I hung up my few blouses. I folded my pants. I put my underwear in the drawers. Everything had its place. Everything fit with room to spare. When I finished, I went to the window and opened it. Fresh air came in, smelling of damp earth and grass. Outside, I could see Martha's garden, the tomatoes growing on their vines, the lettuce in perfect rows, the aromatic herbs, basil, rosemary, mint. Further back was the chicken coop. I could hear the chickens clucking. And at the very back, the small corral where the cows were. This is peace, I thought. This is what it means to live without fear, without tension, without having to measure every word, without having to walk on tiptoes in your own house. I went down to the kitchen. Martha was making soup. She had cut fresh vegetables from the garden, carrots, potatoes, squash, celery. Everything was cooking in a large pot on the wood-fired stove. The steam rose, filling the kitchen with an aroma that reminded me of my childhood, of when Mom cooked for us. "Can I help?" I asked. "Can you set the table? The plates are in that cabinet." Martha pointed with her head, not stopping her stirring. I took out 2 soup bowls, 2 spoons, 2 glasses. I put everything on the kitchen table, a round wooden table with 4 chairs. I found napkins and put them out, too. Everything was simple, everything was basic, but everything felt right. We ate dinner slowly, without rushing. We talked about small things, about the trip, about the garden, about the animals, about the neighbors who wanted to meet me. Martha told me that Mrs. Mercedes, the one who turned 90, made the best empanadas in town and would surely bring me some when she found out I was living here. After dinner, we washed the dishes together. I washed, she dried. Just like when we were girls and Mom made us help after meals, it was a simple but comforting ritual. Something I had not done in years because at Jessica's house, I always washed alone while they went to the living room. That night, I went to bed early. I was tired from the trip and from the emotional toll of the departure. I put on my nightgown, turned off the light, and got into bed. The sheets smelled like lavender. Martha must have stored them with herb sachets, just like Mom used to do. I closed my eyes, expecting to fall asleep quickly. But I could not. Not from anxiety or sadness, but because I felt strangely awake, alert, alive. I opened my eyes and looked at the ceiling. It was not white like my old room. It was wood. I could see the beams. I could see the textures. There was life in that ceiling. I got up and went to the window. It was dark outside, but I could see the stars. Thousands of stars that I could never see in the city because of the light pollution. There were so many they seemed impossible. Like a sparkling blanket spread over the world. I stood there, looking at the sky for a long time, thinking about everything I had left behind, thinking about everything I had ahead of me, and for the first time in years, I felt hope. Real hope. Not the empty hope that things would magically get better, but the concrete hope that I had made the right decisions, that my life could be different because I had made it different. The days began to pass with a new routine. I got up early with Martha. We had breakfast together. She would go out to tend to the animals, and I would clean the house or start lunch. In the afternoons, we would have coffee in the garden while she knitted, and I read the old books I had found in her library. The neighbors started to visit. Mrs. Mercedes came by with her empanadas. Mr. Julio, the one who had sold his farm, sometimes came by for coffee and to tell stories from when we were all young. And then I met Arthur. He was a 67-year-old man, a widower for 3 years. He lived 2 blocks from Martha's house. He had been a teacher at the town school for 40 years. Now he was retired and spent his days reading, walking, and tending his garden. I met him in the square. I had gone for a walk alone one afternoon. I needed time for myself, to process everything, to get used to this new life. He was sitting on a bench, reading a book. When I passed him, he looked up and greeted me. "Good afternoon. You must be Martha's sister. The whole town is talking about your arrival." I laughed. It is that small a place, is it not? Everyone knows everything. That it is. But it is not a bad thing. It means no one goes without, because everyone looks out for everyone. He stood up and offered his hand. "Arthur Olivares. Francis Salinas." I shook his hand. It was a warm, firm, honest hand. "Do you mind if I walk with you?" I was about to take a lap around the square. "I do not mind at all." And that is how it started. Walks in the square that became a routine. Conversations about books, about life, about loss and hope. Arthur was a quiet man. He did not try to impress me. He did not pretend to be something he was not. He was just himself. And I could be myself with him. No masks, no fear. The months passed. My pension started arriving in full, just as I had arranged, $420 every month that I could use however I wanted. I gave $200 to Martha to help with the house expenses. The other $220 I used for myself. New clothes, books, small luxuries I had never been able to afford. I felt rich. Not because of the money, but because of the freedom that money represented. Jessica called a few times during the first few months. Short, awkward conversations, full of silences. She would ask how I was. I would answer that I was fine. She would tell me things about her life. I would listen, but there was a distance between us that could not be closed with phone calls, a distance that had grown for years and that would need time to heal, if it ever could. One day, 6 months after I had left, I was at the town market buying vegetables, and I saw her. Jessica. She was standing at the fruit stand, looking at the apples. She looked tired, worn out. She had deep dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was dull. Her clothes were wrinkled. I approached her slowly. She had not seen me yet. "Jessica," I said softly. She spun around, startled. When she saw me, her face went through several emotions. Surprise, shame, something like sadness. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I live here. What are you doing in town?" "I came." She paused. "I came to see you. I went to Aunt Martha's, but she told me you were at the market." We just stood there in the middle of the market, watching people pass around us. The silence between us was thick. "Do you want to talk?" I asked her. She nodded. We went to the square and sat on a bench, the same bench where I had met Arthur. "Mom," she began, "things are bad, really bad." "What happened?" "Kyle lost his job 2 months ago. He cannot find anything new. We have debts, the house. I think we are going to lose the house." Jessica had tears in her eyes. "And Evelyn is sick. Very sick. She needs constant care. I work all day, and when I get home, I have to go take care of her. I am exhausted. I am not sleeping. I am not eating right. I am all alone."